Chapter 2 of Emily's Quest by Lucy Maud Montgomery. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2. New Moon, November 18th, 19 -- Today the December number of Marchwoods came with my verses Flying Gold in it. I consider the occasion worthy of mention in my diary because they were given a whole page to themselves and illustrated. The first time ever any poem of mine was so honored. It is trashy enough in itself, I suppose. Mr. Carpenter only sniffed when I read it to him and refused to make any comment whatever on it. Mr. Carpenter never damns with faint praise, but he can damn with silence in a most smashing manner. But my poem looked so dignified that a careless reader might fancy there was something in it. Blessings on the good editor who was inspired to have it illustrated. He has bolstered up my self-respect considerably. But I did not care overmuch for the illustration itself. The artist did not catch my meaning at all. Teddy would have done better. Teddy is doing splendidly at the School of Design, and Vega shines brilliantly every night. I wonder if he really does always think of me when he sees it, or if he ever does see it. Perhaps the electric lights of Montreal blot it out. He seems to see a good bit of Ilsa. It's awfully nice for them to know each other in that big city of strangers. November 26th, 19 -- Today was a glamorous November afternoon, summer mild and autumn sweet. I sat and read a long while in the pond burying ground. Aunt Elizabeth thinks this a most gruesome place to sit in, and tells Aunt Laura that she is afraid there's a morbid streak in me. I can't see anything morbid about it. It's a beautiful spot where wild, sweet odors are always coming across Blairwater on the wandering winds. And so quiet and peaceful, with the old graves all about me. Little green hillocks with small frosted ferns sprinkled over them. Men and women of my house are lying there. Men and women who have been victorious. Men and women who have been defeated. And their victory and defeat are now one. I never can feel either much exalted or much depressed there. The sting and the tang alike go out of things. I like the old red sandstone slabs, especially the one from Mary Murray with its "Here I stay," the inscription into which her husband put all the concealed venom of a lifetime. His grave is right beside hers, and I feel sure they have forgiven each other long ago. And perhaps they come back sometime in the dark o' the moon and look at the inscription and laugh at it. It is growing a little dim with tiny lichens. Cousin Jimmy has given up scraping them away. Some day they will overgrow it so that it will be nothing but a green and red and silver smear on the old red stone. December 20th, 19 -- Something nice happened today. I feel pleasantly exhilarated. Madison's took my story, A Flaw in the Indictment. Yes, it deserves some exclamation points after it to a certainty. If it were not for Mr. Carpenter, I would write it in italics. Italics? Nay, I'd use capitals. It is very hard to get in there. Don't I know? Haven't I tried repeatedly and gained nothing for my pains but a harvest of "we regrets"? And at last it has opened its doors to me. To be in Madison's is a clear and unmistakable sign that you're getting somewhere on the Alpine path. The dear editor was kind enough to say it was a charming story. Nice man. He sent me a check for $50. I'll soon be able to begin to repay Aunt Ruth and Uncle Wallace what they spent on me in Shrewsbury. Aunt Elizabeth, as usual, looked at the check suspiciously, but for the first time forbore to wonder if the bank would really cash it. Aunt Laura's beautiful blue eyes beamed with pride. Aunt Laura's eyes really do beam. She is one of the Victorians. Edwardian eyes glitter and sparkle and allure, but they never beam. And somehow I do like beaming eyes, especially when they beam over my success. Cousin Jimmy says that Madison's is worth all the other Yankee magazines put together in his opinion. I wonder if Dean Priest will like A Flaw in the Indictment. And if he will say so. He never praises anything I write nowadays, and I feel such a craving to compel him to. I feel that his is the only commendation, apart from Mr. Carpenter's, that is worth anything. It's odd about Dean. In some mysterious way, he He seems to be growing younger. A few years ago I thought of him as quite old. Now he seems only middle-aged. If this keeps up, he'll soon be a mere youth. I suppose the truth is that my mind is beginning to mature a bit, and I'm catching up with him. Aunt Elizabeth doesn't like my friendship with him any more than she ever did. Aunt Elizabeth has a well-marked antipathy to any priest. But I don't know what I would do without Dean's friendship. It's the very salt of life. January 15th, 19 Today was stormy. I had a white night last night after 4 rejections of manuscripts I had thought especially good. As Miss Royal predicted, I felt that I'd been an awful idiot not to have gone to New York with her when I had the chance. Oh, I don't wonder babies always cry when they wake up in the night. So often I want to do it too. Everything presses on my soul then, and no cloud has a silver lining. I was blue and disgruntled all the forenoon and looking forward to the coming of the mail as the one possible rescue from the doldrums. There is always such a fascinating expectancy and uncertainty about the mail. What would it bring me? A letter from Teddy? Teddy writes the most delightful letters. A nice thin envelope with a check? A fat one, woefully eloquent of more rejected manuscripts? One of Ilsa's fascinating scrawls? Nothing of the sort. Merely an irate epistle from second cousin once removed, Beulah Grant of Derry Pond, who is furious because she thinks I put her in my story Fools of Habit, which has just been copied into a widely circulated Canadian farm paper. She wrote me a bitterly reproachful letter which I received today. She thinks I might have spared an old friend who has always wished me well. She is not accustomed to being ridiculed in the newspapers, and will I, in the future, be so kind as to refrain from making her the butt of my supposed wit in the public press. Second cousin once removed Beulah wields a facile pen of her own when it comes to that, and while certain things in her letter hurt me, other parts infuriated me. I never once even thought of Cousin Beulah when I wrote that story. The character of Aunt Kate is purely imaginary. And if I had thought of Cousin Beulah, I most certainly wouldn't have put her in a story. She's too stupid and commonplace. And she isn't a bit like Aunt Kate, who is, I flattered myself, a vivid, snappy, humorous old lady. But Cousin Beulah wrote to Aunt Elizabeth, too, and we have had a family ruction. Aunt Elizabeth won't believe I am guiltless. She declares Aunt Kate is an exact picture of Cousin Beulah, and she politely requests me, Aunt Elizabeth's polite requests are awesome things, not to caricature my relatives in my future productions. It is not, said Aunt Elizabeth in her stateliest manner, a thing any Murray should do, make money out of the peculiarities of her friends. It was just another of Miss Royal's predictions fulfilled. Oh, was she as right about everything else? If she was... But the worst slam of all came from Cousin Jimmy, who had chuckled over Fools of Habit. "Never mind old Beulah, Pussy," he whispered. "That was fine. You certainly did her up brown in Aunt Kate. I recognized her before I'd read a page. Knew her by her nose." There you are. I unluckily happened to dower Aunt Kate with a long, drooping nose. Nor can it be denied that Cousin Beulah's nose is long and drooping. People have been hanged on no clearer circumstantial evidence. It was of no use to wail despairingly that I had never even thought of Cousin Beulah. Cousin Jimmy just nodded and chuckled again. Of course. Best to keep it quiet. Best to keep anything like that pretty quiet. The worst sting in all this is that if Aunt Kate is really like Cousin Beulah Grant, then I failed egregiously in what I was trying to do. However, I feel much better now than when I began this entry. I've got quite a bit of resentment and rebellion and discouragement out of my system. That's the chief use of a diary, I believe. February 3rd, 19 This was a big day. I had 3 acceptances, and one editor asked me to send him some stories. To be sure, I hate having an editor ask me to send a story somehow. It's far worse than sending them unasked. The humiliation of having them returned after all is far deeper than when one just sends off a manuscript to some dim impersonality behind an editorial desk 1,000 miles away. And I have decided that I can't write a story to order. 'Tis a diabolical task. I tried to lately. The editor of Young People asked me to write a story along certain lines. I wrote it. He sent it back, pointing out some faults and asking me to rewrite it. I tried to. I wrote and rewrote and altered and interlined until my manuscript looked like a crazy patchwork of black and blue and red inks. Finally, I lifted one of the covers of the kitchen stove and dumped in the original yarn and all my variations thereof. After this, I'm just going to write what I want to. And the editors can be canonized. There are northern lights and a misty new moon tonight. February 16th, 19 dash. My story, What the Jest Was Worth, was in the Home Monthly today, but I was only one of others on the cover. However, to balance that, I have been listed by name as one of the well-known and popular contributors for the coming year in Girlhood Days. Cousin Jimmy has read this editor's foreword over half a dozen times, and I heard him murmuring, "well-known and popular," as he split the kindlings. Then he went to the corner store and bought me a new Jimmy book. Every time I pass a new milestone on the Alpine path, Cousin Jimmy celebrates by giving me a new Jimmy book. I never buy a notebook for myself. It would hurt his feelings. He always looks at the little pile of Jimmy books on my writing table with awe and reverence, firmly believing that all sorts of wonderful literature is locked up in the hodgepodge of descriptions and characters and bits they contain. I always give Dean my stories to read. I can't help doing it, although he always brings them back with no comment, or worse than no comment, faint praise. It has become a sort of obsession with me to make Dean admit I can write something worthwhile in its line. That would be triumph. But unless and until he does, everything will be dust and ashes. Because he knows. April 2nd, 19 dash. The spring has affected a certain youth of Shrewsbury who comes out to New Moon occasionally. He is not a suitor of whom the House of Murray approves. Nor, which is more important, one of whom E.B. Starr approves. Aunt Elizabeth was very grim because I went to a concert with him. She was sitting up when I came home. "You see, I haven't eloped, Aunt Elizabeth," I said. "I promise you I won't. If I ever want to marry anyone, I'll tell you so and marry him in spite of your teeth." I don't know whether Aunt Elizabeth went to bed with an easier mind or not. Mother eloped, thank goodness, and Aunt Elizabeth is a firm believer in heredity. April 15th, 19 dash. This evening I went away up the hill and prowled about the Disappointed House by moonlight. The Disappointed House was built 37 years ago. Partly built, at least, for a bride who never came to it. There it has been ever since, boarded up, unfinished, heartbroken, haunted by the timid, forsaken ghosts of things that should have happened, but never did. I always feel so sorry for its poor blind eyes that have never seen, that haven't even memories. No homelight ever shone out through them. Only once, long ago, a gleam of firelight. It might have been such a nice little house, snuggled against that wooded hill, pulling little spruces all around it to cover it. A warm, friendly little house, and a good-natured little house. Not like the new one at the corner that Tom Semple is putting up. It is a bad-tempered house. Vixenish, with little eyes and sharp elbows. It's odd how much personality a house can have, even before it is ever lived in at all. Once long ago, when Teddy and I were children, we pried a board off the window and climbed in and made a fire in the fireplace. Then we sat there and planned out our lives. We meant to spend them together in that very house. I suppose Teddy has forgotten all about that childish nonsense. He writes often, and his letters are full and jolly and Teddy-like, and he tells me all the little things I want to know about his life. But lately they have become rather impersonal, it seems to me. They might just as well have been written to Ilse as to me. Poor little disappointed house. I suppose you will always be disappointed. May 1st, 19 dash. Spring again. Young poplars with golden, ethereal leaves. leagues of rippling gulf beyond the silver and lilac sand dunes. The winter has gone with a swiftness incredible, in spite of some terrible black 3 o'clocks and lonely, discouraged twilights. Dean will soon be home from Florida, but neither Teddy nor Ilse is coming home this summer. This gave me a white night or two recently. Ilse is going to the coast to visit an aunt, a mother's sister who never took any notice of her before. And Teddy has got the chance of illustrating a series of Northwest Mountain police stories for a New York firm, and must spend his holidays making sketches for it in the far north. Of course, it's a splendid chance for him, and I wouldn't be a bit sorry if he seemed a bit sorry because he wasn't coming to Blairwater. But he didn't. Well, I suppose Blairwater and the old life here are to him as a tale that is told now. I didn't realize how much I had been building on Ilse and Teddy being here for the summer, or how much the hope of it had helped me through a few bad times in the winter. When I let myself remember that not once this summer will I hear Teddy's signal whistle in Lofty John's bush, not once happen upon him in our secret beautiful haunts of Lane and Brookside, not once exchange a thrilling significant glance in a crowd when something happened which had a special meaning for us, all the color seemed to die out of life, leaving it just a drab, faded thing of shreds and patches. Mrs. Kent met me at the post office yesterday and stopped to speak, something she very rarely does. She hates me as much as ever. "I suppose you have heard that Teddy is not coming home this summer?" "Yes," I said briefly. There was a certain odd, aching triumph in her eyes as she turned away, a triumph I understood. She is very unhappy because Teddy will not be home for her, but she is exultant that he will not be home for me. This shows, she is almost sure, that he cares nothing about me. Well, I dare say she is right. Still, one can't be altogether gloomy in spring. And Andrew is engaged to a girl of whom Aunt Addie entirely approves. I could not be more pleased with Andrew's choice if I had chosen her myself, she said this afternoon to Aunt Elizabeth. To Aunt Elizabeth and at me. Aunt Elizabeth was coldly glad, or said she was. Aunt Laura cried a little. Aunt Laura always cries a bit when anyone she knows is born or dead or married or engaged or come or gone or polling his first vote. She couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. Andrew would have been such a safe husband for me. Certainly there is no dynamite in Andrew. End of Chapter 2. Recording by Nancy Halper, Summit, New Jersey.